welcome back. This month we promised we would talk about the Supported Software Catalogue.
Yes, so this is the definitive list of software IT has determined it needs to run the organisation.
Yeah, although it's allowed on your estate as well. So let's, before we talk about the software catalogue itself, which is one of the two most important artefacts I think that software asset managers engage with, we need to talk a bit about the bigger picture of where this sits. So within any organisation, you have a load of technology. Some of it's software, some of it's hardware, some of it might be your cloud services, and it all has to knit together in a way which provides services. So the guardians of how all the technology in the organisation and how it all knits together in the biggest possible sense are called enterprise architects. We tend to think of enterprise architects as technologists, but actually enterprise technology architects themselves, enterprise architects see themselves as actually architecting the entire business. But these days, technology is such an important part of that for many enterprise architects, they're really quite technology focused. So the focus is very much on how they're knitting together.
So they go for a specific discipline then at that point, as opposed to looking at the business in the round.
Yeah. So some organisations may have what you call an enterprise technology framework, or some sense of what technology is used within the organisation. What are our broad technology strategies? I mean, a very common one, for instance, is cloud first. We'll move to the cloud. So we're going to start moving away from on-premise technologies and we're moving to the cloud. We may have your enterprise technology framework is often structured around your business services. So you might have a line of business products and technologies and services, or you might have productivity technologies like email, collaboration, etc. So your ETF is unique to you as an organisation, to the industry you're in, and it will also critically identify what technologies are the ones that provide your business with its competitive advantage. So it will also be thinking about, well, what can we outsource? What do we need to keep internally? How are we going to structure the big picture of our technology? We then take that down a step, and what we're doing is we're providing services to the organisation. And this is where this sense of service management comes from. So we have a service catalogue which says these are the services that we're providing to our organisation. It might be line of business services, it might be productivity services, or whatever is required. So that is sort of structured as a here are our services, then let's break that down into what is the technology that supports those services. And this is where we've got data center, we've got cloud, we've got software, we've got a whole mix mash of stuff. So you could say that's your technology catalogue.
I'd argue too, you could say that's potentially your CMDB structure too.
Ding, 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 ding.
Hi service management, how are you?
And then we've got applications. So we have an application catalogue, and the reason the applications is different from software is because if you think about, say, a finance tool, you've got the presentation layer, so that might be the browser that people access the finance tool through. Then you might have an application, a set of databases underneath that. Then you might have some middleware, and then you've got some other stuff. I don't know. There might be a data warehouse somewhere. I mean, these are all just words, aren't they? But they all mean something to somebody. So there's a load. So all of those work together to be an application, and the application itself is a service, because of course our finance application is providing a service to our organisation. But then under that, we've got a load of different software, don't we? So we've got the internet browser is a piece of software. We've got the middleware is software. We've got the databases are software. Then underlying that, of course, we've got a load of maybe networking stuff.
Yes.
Networking, these days you've got networking software. So we need to recognise that all these different ways of thinking about our organisation are different views of one catalogue that may not exist in reality, but the one that as software asset managers we are most involved with is the software catalogue, which is that view of what is the software that is in use within the organisation.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things as well. What data actually goes into a supported software catalogue is, how long is a piece of string? It's a case of identifying the use cases in the organisation that could potentially call upon that supported software catalogue and making sure that the data is there to support the use cases. So deployment will be very interested in the package location potentially for on-site, or the service that they have to engage with if it's an application in the cloud that needs switching on. SAM are going to be very interested in things like publisher, title, version and edition software, potentially SKU as well, definitely SKU as well. And the end user, well, they will possibly want a subset of that. So they might be interested in the publisher, the version and the edition, and that's as far as they want to go or need to go. We don't overload them when it comes to engaging with the catalogue in the request process, as an example, that we touched on last month. So again, tease out those use cases and then make sure too that you understand where the golden source of that information is actually coming from to populate the supported software catalogue.
And I think keep it simple. So just because you think it would be a great idea to do something snazzy, unless it's really driving benefit and really helping you and you're going to use it pretty much every day, don't bother, because it's just another data set that you need to manage. So just include in your software catalogue the bare minimum that you need, and make sure that the management processes that keep stuff up to date are as simple as possible, because you don't want to overload yourself, because it will become out of date and then it will become useless the moment it becomes out of date. So what are the core things that you believe should be in a catalogue?
Personally speaking, so publisher, title, I'm looking at the list down here on my laptop that you can't see, by the way. Publisher, title, version, edition, SKU.
That helps you relate it back to what you've actually been sold.
Or what you're buying, exactly. Classification or type. So, and we'll come on to that in the software rationalization process in due course. And also some sort of a description as well. So just in case an end user picks something that they think will help them with a given task, a description will give them some idea as to whether it actually will or not, or hopefully it will. And if you are cross-charging, then potentially any sort of associated costs with that software as a service or software installation.
The category is, again, you can have different degrees of complexity, and I would suggest at its most basic, you probably just want a blacklist of software that you definitely do not want on your organisation, so that when you identify it, you can flag it up to information security or whoever the appropriate person is. If you become a bit more sophisticated and a bit more, particularly if your systems are very tied down and you're very process driven, you might have a whitelist of software which says, unless it's on this whitelist, we don't want it, so we're going to get rid of it. The other thing to think about is whether or not the software is current and standard. So just because you may have had a piece of software on your estate 5 years ago doesn't mean that you still want it now, because it's 5 years ago, it's 5 years has passed, it's legacy, it might not be being patched, etc. So you really, as you mature as an organisation, you may also want to start thinking about classifying it in terms of, well, this is our standard software, this is legacy software that we're trying to get rid of, and this is an emerging piece of software that we're thinking about starting to deploy. And then, of course, you've always got exceptions. So you might say, well, we've got an older piece of software, but in these very specific circumstances, we're still happy to have that in use. So in that case, it may be an exception legacy standard. It depends what works for you.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those, isn't it? So I was in an organisation recently, a while ago, where they wanted to have a tipping point. So if you, say for example, you were buying your ones and twos and you got to a certain install count, then that was the case. That was the time at which you sort of approached a software vendor and said, right, let's get a contract. Let's scale this up and get it under something that is worthy of a sort of strategic procurement route.
What we haven't mentioned very quickly, because we're running out of time, is the owner.
Yes, the application owner,
Now, a software or application owner is the person who is empowered to make decisions about that application or the software. And actually, you can have multiple different types of owner because, of course, some decisions will be technical, some will be business-oriented decisions, and some might be a licensing decision or whatever. So you may find that you have, particularly for line of business applications, for instance, that you have multiple owners, one of whom is the business person or the business manager who runs the team that gets the benefit of the software. Then you might have a technical person who's responsible for maintaining it and supporting it. So that's really important because that allows you to put one or two individuals on the spot for making decisions about that software that you, as a software asset manager, cannot make yourself.
No, it depends how. I guess it depends how strategic the vendor and the title are to the company.
Mm. So that's the software asset manager. Software catalogue. We will be using it throughout the software processes, won't we?
Mm-hmm.
So get used to hearing it.
Yeah, and don't forget to raid the white papers download as well because there's guidance on there too.
Yeah. Great. See you later.
All right. Take care.